There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, home of the modern whitetail hunter. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your guest host, Tony Peterson, and today I'm speaking with public land whitetail killer Andy May. All right, folks, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, which is brought to you by First Light. You might notice that this is not the voice of Mark Kenyon. He sent me an email last week saying that he is off at a soap carving convention in Peoria, Illinois, and that he hopes to level up his skills so that his dolphins are as good as his other work. I don't really know what he means by that, but I hope he achieves that goal. And while he's working on it, you've got me and Andy May. Andy is one of the most successful, well-known public land bow hunters out there. He's easily one of the most successful hunters alive today. From his home state of Michigan to a pile of other states, Andy just gets it done on great animals. And he partially credits this to his love of woodsmanship, his constant quest for knowledge, and his discipline. In this episode, which is kind of like a part 2 to last week's show with Casey Smith, we talk about why Andy chooses to hunt where he does. And instead of focusing on trophy caliber, he focuses on hunting opportunities that will make him better. We also go off on a bunch of tangents to talk about social media influencers, deer managers, and a bunch of other stuff. I think you're really going to enjoy this one because I know every time I talk to Andy, I get my faith in hunting or the hunting industry renewed just a little bit, and I always learn something. Andy May, it's a pleasure to see you again, buddy.
Hey, Tony, thanks for having me. How you doing?
I'm good, man. You got sick of me bothering you, and you finally decided to sit down and do a podcast. And we've got this is kind of a part 2. You know, I had Casey Smith on just recently talking about kind of DIY hunt planning and traveling to find big bucks on public land and go have a good experience. We covered a lot of stuff there, but you and I are going to take a different route on this because I think we kind of view hunting similarly, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff there, but we were just talking off air about like your workout schedule and how important that is to your whitetail hunting. And we hear that out west all the time, but we don't hear the benefits for the whitetail hunter very much. So just give me a breakdown of like your year, just kind of like, when are you working out the hardest? When are you kind of slacking off? And what are you doing to keep yourself healthy and happy, but also how does that tie into your whitetail hunting?
Yeah. I mean, I take workout and fitness very seriously. It's something I'm very passionate about. I love it. I would say, 80% of the year, it's a major priority. I would say on average, I go to the gym 5 days a week. That'd probably be the average. Sometimes I go every day or maybe 6 days and some days maybe 3 or 4, but I'd say on average, 5 days a week. And I incorporate like weightlifting and cardio. And the reason I like to do that, aside from just being healthy, I want longevity. I want to be able to grow old and see my daughter do cool things. And I want to keep hunting as long as possible. But it just makes me feel good. I think it's a big advantage when it comes to hunting, not just the physical part. We all know some hunters that aren't in the best shape that do well and they're hardcore and they got this going, the mental toughness. And so I'm certainly not trying to say that this is a necessity, but for me personally, when I feel strong and I feel healthy and my joints feel good and I got good cardio, I feel like I'm up for anything. Truth be told, like I do ramp up the intensity and of my workouts and the frequency leading up to hunting season, mainly focused on the Western hunts, because I know that I'm going to be putting a lot of miles on at elevation, a lot of up and down. It's going to be hard on my knees, hard on my back. And I try to like train myself to just be, I guess, the best I can be going into that. It certainly helps with my whitetail. I have a bad back. I have bad knees. And the more active I am kind of throughout the year, I do stretches, I do weights, I do cardio, I try to keep everything, running like a smooth oiled machine. And, you get into whitetail season and it's like you're sitting in a tree stand and, there's a lot of times where you're not mobile. And it really helps with like my back health and my knee health. Just continuing to kind of do that stuff. So one thing that we talked about off air though, that I think is a huge benefit is what it does for you mentally. I think for me personally, like I've incorporated it into my life so much, but I enjoy going, but there's just some days, just like anybody, you don't want to go. You don't feel like going. You're tired, you're worn down, you're sore. And I always try to force myself to go anyway. And I wasn't always like that, but I started to do that years and years ago. And what I've found for me personally is like, it's kind of changed my mindset into like this disciplined mindset where, I feel like it builds this mental toughness, and it translates into my hunting sometimes too, I think, because we've all been on a bad hunt, where nothing seems to be going our way, or a season that's just, you can't seem to do anything right. I feel like, I don't know, just having that mental toughness just to keep going after it and keep putting in that time and that work. And eventually, things work out. And just like too, let's say you're on a big piece of public land, it's in the hill country, and, a person that maybe doesn't have that mindset might not want to go 2 miles back over 3 ridges, and they might be like, it's kind of far, I don't know, I'm run down. Well, I don't know. It's just like I've trained myself, like when I'm faced with like that decision or the easy one, just hunt, right off the road here, a half mile. It's like, if I'm 50-50 on them and I don't have a stronger feeling one way or the other, it's like I force myself to pick that harder decision. And it's just like I found that I'm starting to do that more and more throughout life. And I don't know, it just feels good, man. It feels like you're willing to go the extra mile, and when you don't feel like going, you do it anyway. So yeah. I've been trying to kind of teach that discipline thing to my daughter in her sports, and she's getting it. But I think the way it benefits me is multifaceted. Not just in normal life, but hunting as well.
Oh, dude, when I quit drinking, I started working out. I hated every second of it, but it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And the thing that I didn't realize was, I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to be elk hunting, so I'm going to do this anyway. I'm going to try to get into shape. But when it became a part of my life, I was just like, I felt like somebody had given me a secret to whitetail hunting that I just could not have known before. Like just like how you talk about kind of the discipline and just feeling good doing stuff. I got to a point where there was no settling, like where, you think about it, you get kind of run down, or you're like, oh, this stand's good enough, or this spot's good enough. When you don't feel the best, it's like really easy to default to that settle mode. And man, when you're, used to running 1,000 miles a year, or, hitting the gym 5 days a week or whatever you do, it's like you kind of get into that mode where you're like, I'm okay suffering. Like I'm okay being hungry, thirsty, tired, sore, whatever. And I know the benefit on the other side of this struggle is going to make me feel good. And it's probably, I know people don't like hearing about the fitness thing in the whitetail world, but when you talk about going out to some public land chunk somewhere and hiking 3 miles in, like if you're going to take that route for your hunting and challenge yourself that way, being used to being uncomfortable and being physically capable of going there and doing that, it opens up a world to you. It's so, to me, like, people are always like, hey, what can I buy? Can I buy a call? Can I buy a decoy? Can I buy a camera? And I'm like, buy some freaking Brooks running shoes, man, and get a gym membership, because it is going to change your life in a way that no hunting product probably will. It's really, it's a real eye opener when you go through it.
Absolutely. I mean, that would be, if someone wasn't doing that already, that would be really high at the top of the list of something I would recommend, not just, for obvious healthy lifestyle changes, but it does translate into your hunting and your decision making. And you almost want, I find myself wanting those tough hunts. Like when I went to Nevada, we were, in the Ruby Mountains, and we did 80 miles in, I don't know, 9 days or something like that. And, man, I loved every minute of it. And it was hard and I was suffering, and it was like, yeah, like this is what I trained for. This is what I want. I want to know that I can do, anything that the mountain's asking me. And, when you can get to that, I guess when you can get to that level, and there's certainly guys that are way higher level than me, but when you get to that mindset, the whitetail stuff seems relatively easy, and I know not everybody's there with their fitness. So it's an awesome change, if you can do that. I full disclosure, once the hunting season comes, my workouts really do suffer. I would like to say that I keep it going 5 days a week all through hunting season, but it doesn't happen. There's like a slow transition of where I start working out less once the hunting season starts. But what I'll do is I'll incorporate still my full body stuff, but into a less amount of days. So instead of 5 days a week, maybe I'm going 2 or 3, but I'm still doing a lot of the same exercises. And then you get into the meat of that hunting season where it's just like, it's prime time, you know what I mean? And you're trying to spend as much time as you can in the woods. And my workouts pretty much go non-existent for a month and a half. And, I lose 10, 15 pounds every year of muscle mass, and I gain fat, and I'm on the road and I'm eating fat. I'm eating gas station Casey's crap. And, you come out of the hunting season, it's like, oh my gosh, like what have I done to myself? But, and then my cycle is I just kind of gradually start getting back into the gym, and that's where I'm at right now. And I've already put on 8 pounds and feeling good. And it's just like, it's like this cycle that I do. I got to do a better job of keeping it going throughout the hunting season. But as you know, like we've talked, my hunting time is super limited. I mean, I've had 11 sits for whitetail this year. 11. I mean, that's pretty sad. Now I did go out west. I didn't count those, but for whitetail, 11 sits. I've scouted a ton that have kind of led to some high quality sits out of those 11. But once hunting season starts and I'm trying to put in time and trying to figure out some deer and trying to really hone in where I want to spend some time, it's like something's got to give. And for me, the gym time does sacrifice, it does take a hit there, unfortunately. Yep. So I got to do a better job of balancing that.
Well, there's only so much time in the day,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there just is. And I that's interesting that you say that about your time in the field this year, because in total whitetail hunting, either all day or a morning or evening sit this year, I only got out there 12 days, and 7 of those were filming. And so, people are always like, "Oh man, you had an incredible season." I'm like, I did not have that. I had a productive season as far if body count matters, it was good. But as far as just getting lots of time out there, it doesn't happen that much, or it doesn't happen the way it probably appears that it does. And so I'm kind of like you, man. Like when I do get out there, like I want to be into it every second that I have, because I know it's not going to be very much time. And I feel so much better when I feel like I go into it in really good shape. I wanted to ask you, are you a goal setter? Like with your workouts, with your hunting, do you start the year and go, you know what, I want to get my deadlifts up to this, and I want to get my cardio up to this, or, it's 170s or bust, or you just kind of go with the flow?
No, I wouldn't say I'm a goal setter. Nothing specific. I want to peak my fitness level right before hunting season. That seems that I've kind of been in that routine for probably the last 10, 12 years where I kind of build and, I try to peak cardio, peak fitness level right leading into the hunting season. So I guess that's a goal. I don't have weight goals or anything like that. I work out a lot different than I used to. A lot different, a lot less weight, more cardio. I'm thinking more about my heart and lungs and flexibility and tendon strength and functional movements. Functional movements that keep me flexible, mobile, stretches that keep me from getting tight, that eliminate back pain, things like that. As far as hunting, I don't set specific goals. My goal, one of my main goals has always been to, always keep improving as a hunter. I always want to keep getting better. I've said that on a million podcasts. That is my goal. I don't really care about inches. Don't get me wrong. I want to chase the biggest buck that I have available. I mean, I did this year. But I just want to keep improving. I want to keep experiencing new places, new challenges. I want to keep sharpening my skill. So it's constant work with the bow. It's constant scouting. Going back to the limited time in the woods, I could have hunted more. I could have not went out west and had more time in the whitetail woods. I could have scouted less and had more tree time. I was scouting 3-4 times a week. And maybe hunting 1 or 2. So I was putting in time that led to my success so that I had higher quality sits when I did have time. So I just want to clarify that. But yeah, I don't set goals of inches. I've never been blessed ever to hunt in an area that has high scoring deer. I never have. I've never sought out those areas. I've never prioritized that nearly as much as just experiencing new places and trying to put myself into situations that I'm not that good at. I talked before, you've had him on your podcast, Jesse Coots. Jesse is a phenomenal early season hunter. And when I met Jesse, I had only killed 3 or 4 early season bucks, and he had killed his target buck on the opening day of New York's bow season 4 years in a row. And I was like, what? How does he do that? You know what I mean? I needed to learn from this guy. So I befriended him, and now we're good friends. We talk often, and I just picked his brain and I learned, and I was just, I had that kind of feeling that something was missing in my skill set that Jesse had. And I sought that out. And I kind of incorporated some of the things that he taught me, and I put a lot more effort into being successful in the early season. And next thing you know, I'm starting to kill great bucks early season, and now it's a strength of mine. I feel the same way about late season. It's just a time that I struggle with. I never had really good late season spots, so I'm trying to put myself into that situation a little more, and different types of country and different types of habitat and terrain, that I don't get to tackle too often. I want that. I hear about guys, hunting big woods setting, and they're killing big bucks, and you hear them talk, you're like, wow, I don't have that. I don't have that yet. And I want it. I'm thankful for those guys, and I look up to those guys, and I admire those guys. And when I see somebody that has a skill that I don't possess, or at least I don't feel like mine is as strong as it could be, that eats at me. That eats at me way more than not shooting a 170-inch buck. It's just the way I'm wired. So yeah, to answer your question, my goal is just to keep getting better, keep trying new things, new species, new areas, different ways, different tactics. And that just keeps my fire burning. It keeps me excited about hunting, and just motivated.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co, and make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
So you specifically plan out your fall in a way that you know is going to challenge yourself, like your travel.
Yeah. I don't want to say that, I don't go back to places that I've learned well. I do. It's usually, I usually build on it. It's not like I go back to the same tree and just kill a good buck out of it every year. I mean, that never happens. It usually leads me to a different piece of property, or, a different area of this piece of ground, or whatever. But yeah, I've for a lot of years there, I was really focusing on that early season whitetail stuff, so I was going to states that opened up early before Michigan. And then I started killing some great deer there, pretty consistently. And then it's not that I felt like I had it figured out, but it was like, okay, that satisfied that a little bit. I feel like I got some skill there now. I feel confident that I could go places and do that, and then I started focusing on some different terrain or late season. And, the last 5-6 years, I've been traveling places like kind of that late November, December timeframe. And I've started to kill some really good bucks out of state. And, it is something that I wasn't good at. I didn't have confidence in. So yeah, I'm always trying to throw that kind of stuff in there and kind of mix it in with things that I like. Like I'm really digging the spot and stalk, on the ground, muleys, whitetail, whatever it be, antelope. So I always try to throw some of that in there. I really love the Western stuff that just beats me to a pulp. Like I want to come out of a hunt and I want to feel like I was run over by a truck. And I like that because I didn't have confidence in that. I didn't know that I could go live 9 days in the backcountry, up in the Ruby Mountains. And I challenged myself to do that. And I didn't come home with a buck. I came this close to a world-class mule deer, full draw, but didn't come back with a buck. But man, it felt good. It felt like I learned something. It felt like I did something, it felt like I got better at something. So yeah, I'm always kind of throwing those kind of hunts in, and always the wheels are always turning. Like, what can I do that's new? What can I do that, what's my weakness? What do I need to improve at? I'm talking to a lot of guys too regularly. A few guys that I'm sure will come up in conversation, but like I feel like are true woodsmen. And when I talk to them, I'm learning stuff. You know what I mean? I'm constantly learning stuff. And I love that. I love those guys that are still doing it the old way. And they're sharpening the Indian and not relying on technology and all this other stuff. I heard that quote the other day, sharpen the Indian. And I just love that. I loved that quote. So yeah, man. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I try to throw a mix of different things in, but that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And you said that this is how you're wired. And I don't doubt this for a second, but I bet it's also to some extent, when we were chatting off air here just a little bit ago, you kind of come to realize there's two ways to look at this stuff. And the hunting industry does a really good job of selling us on one style of whitetail hunting, which is take away the whitetail's defenses somehow. Create a spot he's going to want to go to eat, to drink, where the does are going to be. Leave him alone till he's old enough to kill him. Sit in a box blind or sit in some way where you negate his senses further. Use all the technology to your advantage and just kind of overwhelm those suckers. And then there's the other path where you don't have that option. Either it's just not feasible or you choose not to have it. And you go, I'm going to go hunt where these deer, they're not babysat. They're not conditioned to go into a certain spot and feel safe. They're living out there in a place they get hunted all the time. And the only way to really enjoy that and to get to have success is for you to get better. Not for you to dumb the deer down, because that's not going to happen. And so there's these two kind of paths, and they get, we conflate this all the time. And I don't want people to think that I'm shitting on that style of, planting food plots and stuff. Like, go nuts for donuts. I don't care what people do. But what you're talking about is you're intentionally choosing to go a route where your only option is level up or your time's going to suck, because you don't have the option to change the deer or force them to kind of alter their behavior, convince them that they're safe. You just got to go, I got to get better.
Yeah. Honestly, these some of these out of state trips, when you figure in gas and tag prices and, scouting trips and all this stuff, it adds up with money. Honestly, I probably could, it doesn't seem like I could, but honestly, I could probably cut back and, buy a cool farm in Illinois or something and manage it and shoot bigger deer than what I'm doing now. Or get a couple leases, in Ohio, and in Iowa and Kansas, and just put all my money into that and shoot higher scoring deer. I could probably do that. But I don't know. It just doesn't, what I'm doing now, fits my mindset and my goals better. We talked about this a little bit, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to crap on these guys either, but like I hear sometimes, I listen to the podcast, like I can admire any hunter that is at the top of their niche, you know what I mean? Like of their category. And some of these guys, I consider them more deer managers than actual deer hunters. And I don't mean that as a negative way. They are the best of the best. But like I listened to their podcasts and, trying to pick up a nugget of information that I could use. And I hear things, I heard one of the guy, one guy was saying he had 32 bucks over 150 inches. And I'm just like, holy crap, and this is a guy we consider a whitetail expert, a whitetail deer hunter expert. And I don't know if that's, in my opinion, I don't know if that's the right label. An expert deer manager, an expert deer grower, 100%. Like if that's your goal, that's the guy to listen to. One of the other guys says that he's out there so much and he puts himself out there checking cameras and filling feeders and so much. He said the deer just get used to me. And I'm just like, well, why is that the goal? Why is the goal to make deer get used to you? Like, isn't that taking away the difficulty of hunting? The thing that we love so much, the challenge of it. And then, another guy was talking about one of his redneck blinds, I think. And he said, when he's in it, the deer can't smell me. They cannot smell me. I'm bulletproof. And I'm just like, I was talking to Kenyon about it. I was like, why is that the goal? Why is that the goal, to take away their number one defense so that you can shoot them? So I don't know. When I was hearing these things, it just started my wheels turning. I think it's very important. I think it's crucial that we keep the woodsmanship part of hunting alive. And there's a clear trend and path towards taking that away through technology, through deer farming, through deer managing, through locking up as much ground as you can and keeping everybody else out so that you have the easiest hunting possible. but there's still some guys out there that feel very strongly that that's not the way. That's not the way it should be. That's not the way to keep the resource around long term. I don't know. I feel like it's a conversation that needs to be talked about, and I feel that I don't know. I feel compelled to talk about this and hopefully inspire some people to keep that alive. There's some guys, and those are the guys I talk to on a daily basis. Like I have some friends, some close friends that I don't talk to on a daily basis about deer because we don't align 100% on that. And some of the guys I talk to, I mean, we talk about reading sign, and we talk about all these different types of terrain, and they're trying to learn from me, from areas that I've been in that they haven't been in. And I'm trying to learn from them in the big woods or the hill country and these little intricacies that I don't have the experience yet to pull from. And we find it fascinating to talk to each other, and we literally talk every day, while we're driving or whatever. And, those are the guys I'm drawn to. I'm drawn to the guys like you and Eddie Claypool and my friend Justin Wright, who is just an awesome woodsman. I'm drawn to listening to guys like, Bobby Worthington. I'm drawn to guys like, Nathan Killen is one that comes to mind. I came across his podcast, and he's a big woods guy, and you can tell he's just a woodsman. Travis Murray, I listened to one of his podcasts. He's from the South. Like when you hear about these guys, you're not hearing food plots. You're not hearing about managing the deer or getting them to 5 years of age. You're not hearing that stuff. You're hearing about the woodsmanship, the skill, and the craft of hunting, and improving that to achieve success. Zach Fehrenball, he's another one. Bo Martonic, you know what I mean? Bo's a young dude, but you listen to him talk. Look at his videos. I mean, the guy is talking about breaking down mountain bucks, and he's talking about, all these different native food sources that are there that I have no experience with. And I just watched that, and I'm just like, I eat it up, man. Like that's a guy, like that's one of those guys that's going to keep it alive. So I don't know. I think it's important. I know you feel strongly. I know you feel the same way.
I do. And I think what I love about, there's a lot of stuff going on, right? Like people are super pissed off about social media influencers in the hunting space, and, the YouTube kind of hunters and stuff like that. And I get the complaints, but I also love the fact that, if you take like the deer manager route where you're going to take a property and try to really cultivate some big bucks and turn it into a mecca, that's sort of ubiquitous across the whitetail space, right? Like you could do that in Louisiana, you could do that in Michigan, you could do it in New York, and it might be a little bit different in each state, but the blueprint is kind of the same. The path is kind of the same. It's like, okay, we know how to hack the whitetails that way, and we know how to pull that off, and that can be like a great option if that's what you want to do. But what I love about like the current space we have, when you mentioned Bo and Zach and some of these guys, they're showing people the other ways to do this stuff. I love that. Like I'm the same way, man. I think those people are so inspirational, and they show you what can't be done. Like everybody says, oh, it's impossible to come to my state and kill a buck. It's impossible to kill a big one on public land in Michigan. It's impossible to do this. And I'm like, I don't know, man. If it's impossible, I don't know what these guys are doing, because they're doing it. They're showing it. And I talk about you on every freaking podcast I do. I'm like, these people are out here proving that this stuff can be done. And I think that's like so inspirational when you're sitting there and you've got that kind of localized bias going, or you're like, hey, I want to travel out of state and I want to hunt here, but man, I don't know. I don't want to go hunt. I heard there's only 2% of public land in Nebraska, or it's way over hunted in Missouri. I don't know if I want to do it. And then you see people show up in 4, 5, 6 days, kill a great buck and leave. And you're like, okay, well, that dude did it. Like it's totally possible. I love that aspect of what's going on today.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Those guys are crucial. And, I know what you're referring to with the, kind of the buzz with the attack on social media hunters and YouTube hunters and stuff. And I have some opinions about that too. There's certainly some negatives, and some people that appear to be doing it for, in my opinion, the wrong reasons. But there's also people out there, like you mentioned, Zach, Bo, some of these other guys that are putting out content on YouTube, and it's doing exactly what we're talking about, is keeping that woodsmanship alive, keeping that mentality of I want to get better and I want to learn. Like you can listen to Zach talk all day, man. He's just like, man, he's just like, I just want to be able to do that, or I want to figure that out, or he's like, I'm not good at that, or I want to do this. And it's just like, yeah, that's the mentality right there, man. That feeling of you can go anywhere. You can go anywhere that has whitetail and be effective. And that is what I strive to have. And I certainly have that feeling that I can go and be effective in a lot of areas, but I don't have that feeling everywhere. There are some guys, there's some guys that I hear of that talk, they're from different areas in the South or the Far East or whatever. And it's just like, I don't have any experience there. I don't think I can go there and kill a buck in 4 days like I can in some of these other states that I've had some experience and some confidence in. I mean, maybe it might happen. You have you develop a certain level of hunting instinct and decision making, and the ability to perform, under pressure when that, the heat of the moment happens. But I got a lot to learn. And I'm eager to learn. I listen to a lot of like Southern stuff. Ironically, like I don't even have any plans yet to go hunt in the South. I've hunted as south as Tennessee, so I guess it's down there a little ways. But like, some of those guys, man, they got it tough and they get it done. And I hear them talking, I'm like, wow, that's some next level stuff for that type of terrain. Now they might come up here in the open country of Flatland, Ohio, and just be lost, but like, that's where I feel real comfortable, or the broken up land of river bottoms and some rolling hills. Like that's kind of my bread and butter. I feel comfortable there. So I don't know. It's just that mindset of growing and learning. And I feel like if you get to that point where you close that off and you become this expert. I hate it when people call me an expert. I hate it. I just hate it. And I hate it when people call themselves an expert too. But it's just like you're closing your mind off. It's like, okay, I'm the expert. Like I got all the answers. I know what I can do. I can answer this question about this and this and this. I don't know that you can ever achieve that. Really. There's too many types of situations, too varying degrees of pressure, too much different type of terrain and weather and temperature differences in different parts of the country that I don't know if you could master it all. But I don't know. That's what motivates me, is just constantly learning. If I'm learning, then I'm feeling good. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling fulfilled with hunting. And if I'm not, if I'm just, I get in a groove and I'll probably kill a 3 or 4 year old buck off this piece of property this year. I got 3 or 4 of them, I'm going to get one of them. I don't know, man. That takes away a lot of the excitement from me, personally. And I know some guys just love that, not taking it away, but I do feel like I personally do this, right or wrong. I put hunters in categories, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I relate to one much more than the other. I don't think I'll ever relate well to like the deer manager and, growing big bucks and naming the big bucks. And, it's like every year those guys shoot the buck they're after every single year. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. It's like, I don't want that. I want to fail, man. I want to be able to shoot. I want to have to shoot my number 2 sometimes, Well,
I mean, it's just different strokes, man. And, one of the things that you said earlier that I think, I think it's worth acknowledging that, people go out there for different reasons. Like a lot of people, they don't want to challenge themselves hunting. They want to go have fun and they don't want to work that hard. And that's cool. Like do whatever. But what you mentioned about big woods and now talking about down south, which is kind of just like big woods 2.0. I mean, when you're really talking about like difficulty level and people who kind of just by default of their situation have to become woodsmen, like have to develop real woodsmanship. big woods, man, when you take out like a lot of destination food sources and broken tracks of timber where there's, a high likelihood the deer live there because that's the only cover, you get into a different world. And, some people have no desire to go experience that. And some people, they look at that and go, I have never killed a big buck there, and I got to figure that out. And I have two things. I've talked about this a million times. I'm obsessed with northern Wisconsin because it kicks my ass so much. It set me, when I started hunting over there, I was doing pretty well in other places. Like I felt really good about certain places I was hunting. And there I felt like I was starting at 12 years old again, where I'm like, man, I'd be so happy if a Forky walked down the trail right now because I'm getting freaking smoked here. And eventually, you kill some deer and you move up. And I'm at the stage where I can find the big ones and I can see the big ones, but I have yet to freaking shoot one, and it drives me nuts. But I love it. Like, it keeps me coming back because I know when I go over there, like it's almost a guarantee I'm going to fail in regards to filling a tag. Like, it's just almost guarantee. And there's another environment that I keep looking at. That I love pheasant hunting and I love training dogs, and I'm obsessed with late season roosters. Like, it's one of my favorite things to do. So I spend a pile of time in the cattails in December and January in different states. And I keep jumping great big bucks out of the cattails. And I keep talking about this, and I'm like, I got to go figure that out. And it's going to be like for me, it's going to be like a poor man's version of going to Kansas or something. Cause it's going to be more of a kind of a spot and stalky, glassy type of, there's not very many trees in any one of these places that you're at, but that's why they're in the cattails partially. But that environment, it's got the deer. It's just going to be insanely challenging as far as setups and approach and play in the wind. But I love that there's like options like that out there for public land hunters. Like, anybody could go into these places where we're shooting roosters and be around, 125, 130 inch bucks, like be on the same property as them. And I think that that's like incredible. Like, I think it's incredible that we have that option out there in so many places.
Mm-hmm. Your story about Wisconsin, that just says a lot about you. I mean, it says that, you and I are aligned a lot. I'm sure you go to your old favorites sometimes and, where you've had some success before, because you always want to build on that. You can always learn more about an area and get better. And that's part of, improving as a hunter as well. But the fact that you keep going back and just getting your ass kicked, that just shows right there, man. It's like you're addicted to the challenge. You're addicted to learning. It's like you're not going to quit until you do what you're setting out to do, which is kill a good buck in northern Wisconsin. So, yeah, man. I mean, that's what we need. We need more of that. We need more of that mindset, I think. I see like it seems like this past 2 or 3 years, there's been such this huge shift in technology. I mean, technology has always been improving, right? But like, man, the last 2 or 3 years, we got a crossbow that just came out that shoots 520 feet per second. It shoots 3-inch groups at 130 yards. So now that gun is outperforming the old smoothbore shotguns. It's performing
by quite a bit.
Performing equal to a rifled barrel slug. And guys are buying them up like crazy. You know what I mean? And I just do not like the way that's going. It's, I feel like, again, what we talked about earlier is just guys are looking for easier ways to achieve success. The cell camera thing, I'm still on the fence about that. I don't know that they should be legal. I'm not willing to say that outright yet, but like, how many guys do you know that run a dozen of them, 20 of them, and all they do is just take that real-time information and base all their decisions on that? I mean, there's some really good hunters that are, famous hunters that are, that's what they're doing. And the bucks that they killed this year are a direct result of a real-time photo. They decided to go to that spot on that day, and then they killed that buck. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, where do we draw the line of fair chase? That's I'm not trying to tell anybody what that line is, but you should be thinking about that. You should be thinking about that and draw your own line. Eventually it feels like, because we're already seeing it. We're already seeing it out west because guys are killing way more efficiently now with trail cameras, way more efficiently with cell cameras, way more efficiently with, range finding sights and rifles that shoot over 1,000 yards. And it's decreasing the resource to the point that it's decreasing opportunity for the everyday hunter. Okay. It's already happening out there. It's happening here too. We're doing the same thing here. We're not seeing it quite as fast out there because there's a ton of whitetail, but eventually we're going to become so efficient at, essentially what are we doing? We're conducting surveillance and then assassinating. You know what I mean? We're not hunting anything down. We're conducting surveillance from our home, from our couch with our phone. And then we're going in when we know they're there and we're shooting them. And I don't know, man, it feels yucky. It feels dirty. It certainly isn't the way I think things should be going. I don't know. I don't want to crap on people that are doing that, but at the same time, it's like, this is why this conversation needs to happen. And we need to keep that mentality of being a woodsman and keeping things somewhat traditional, alive, and I'm a hypocrite, man. I'm using a compound bow. I'm using a rangefinder. I'm using trail cameras. I'm getting information too. I might not be getting real-time information, but I'm getting information. I'm focusing where I get those big buck pictures. So, hey, I'm guilty. I'm guilty, but I'm thinking about it. And, I think that's important.
Well, I do too. And I'm torn on this stuff because I don't like being told what to do, but at the same time, I look at, the cell cameras and some of the things that are going on. And I go, how does this look to the non-hunting public? Because I'm concerned about that. Like, it's the same issue with baiting, right? Like, people get super fired up about baiting, and I look at that and I go, okay, how does this look to the non-hunters? Because they're going to decide our fate. That's where I get nervous. Like, personally, if somebody wants to use a cell camera, I really don't care. Like, I own some. I don't think they help me out a bunch. I don't use them for most of my hunts. But I'm kind of like, whatever. I think we'll go retro on some of that stuff, and eventually it'll get. I don't think that some cell cameras are going to be allowed in season in a lot of states. I think that's coming eventually.
I hope so.
We're not there yet. But I look at this and I go, man, we sit in a, like a manufactured box over, food we planted for the deer with cell cameras, and it's like I get a little wiggy about it because I know if I had to explain that to a non-hunter who was just sort of ambivalent, right? Like, I don't care if you hunt, as long as you eat them, I don't give a shit. But then all of a sudden you're like, well, this is how I do it. Like, here's all the advantages I'm giving myself. Now I worry about where that takes us, and people, we talk about this a lot, right? Like with social media and, showing some of the things we probably shouldn't be showing, spine shots or, celebrating gut shots or whatever, like there's, you name it. There's things out there, and I don't know if there's an option for us to police ourselves on this stuff. I wish it felt feasible, because I think we should, but I think somebody else is going to end up policing us on some of this stuff, and it's probably not going to work out very well for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot out there on, for the world to see that it certainly doesn't look great, to the people that are on the outside looking in that are non-hunters. I don't know. I mean, I think I've heard conversations about it, recently, especially with the recent, I'm sure you're aware of the article that came out. It created that big stir about social media. And, there's conversations being made. And I think podcasts like this, conversations, are just making people more aware. So hopefully we start doing a better job of that. We always need to think of that. We always need to think about how things are portrayed to people outside of hunting. And I think a lot of social media is, you're worrying about how it's portrayed to people in hunting, and not always portraying things in the way they actually happened, and, how the animal was taken and where it was taken and so on and so forth. So I don't know. I'm not a prolific poster, so, but when I do post things, I try to share my story. I try to always talk about the hunt a little bit, so that, those guys out there that are maybe looking to me, looking at me to learn a little bit from, I always try to post a little bit about that out there, and, try to keep it, respectful, and not about me. Like, I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the hunt, about the decision making it took, the shot that I made, that was difficult, the animal, what he did that was unique to, compared to some of the other animals I've hunted. Like, I try to talk about some of that stuff, in my posts. So I don't know. I try to be mindful of it. I'm sure we all can do better. But it's good. It's good we're talking about it.
Well, yeah. And, the social media thing, it's like people act surprised that it's mostly bullshit. And there's a lot of people out there trying to be famous and get attention. Like, I mean, this is just the new wave. And I don't want this to sound worse than it is, but when I see these arguments, I'm like, yeah, we've had TV hunters since we've had outdoor like, this is just the new wave. It's the new medium. We had it, I'm sure, pre-Sportsman Channel and Outdoor Channel, when magazines were burning really, really hot. I mean, I heard stories about it. Like, when I got into the industry, that editors and writers were like the superstars of the hunting industry. And I'm sure some of them were self-serving assholes who did not portray us very well. And then we got TV, and there was an opportunity to buy your way into, buy your airtime. You can put your show on there. We still do that. Like, this stuff's always existed. And I am glad that these conversations are happening. Like, I'm glad the general hunting population is more aware of this, and they're questioning, like, what are the motives? Like, who should we be supporting? I love that stuff, because I think we do kind of got to cleanse ourselves a little bit. Like, I think like people on my side have to be kept in check, and like, we have to be aware, like, what's the audience think? And at the same time, I think the audience needs to understand like what's going into some of this stuff. Like, you always hear and I swore I wouldn't get into this because I don't want to get fired, but let's do it anyway. You always hear the complaint of like, this influencer did this, or he's such a whore, or she is just pushing these products. And I sit here and I go, you're absolutely right. 100%. They're culpable, but you have no idea the deliverables that are in those contracts and coming from these manufacturers and these media companies in between, these PR companies. This stuff's muddy. There's a lot of people with their hands in the cookie jar. There's one target. That's your, quote unquote influencer. That's your target, but you don't know who's behind the scenes making this stuff happen. And I promise you, if you buy a bow, or you buy a camera, or you buy a release, or you buy a grunt tube or whatever, you're supporting companies that are pushing this social media thing hard, and they're building in deliverables to make these people turn into bigger whores. And, hey, they don't have to do it. Like, I get it. Like, they could walk away and they could go be plumbers. They could go do something else, but that's their job. And that's the situation they get into. And it's a creep thing. Like, nobody gets in there and is like, hey, I want to just be a blatant freaking used car salesman, right? But over time, we're going to ask more and more of you for less money, or to maintain this style of living. And so it's a muddy, it's a difficult topic. And a lot of the things that are kind of behind the scenes really don't make it into the general conversation. And that's like, no matter how much I agree with some of these loud voices, I'm like, you don't really know the scope of this problem, like how deep it really runs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to, crap on social media. I mean, there's certainly a lot of positives that come from it. You know what I mean? We're reaching a lot of non-hunters through social media. Some of the biggest voices out there certainly are, and getting more people involved, which, is a good thing, 100%. So, and for me, like, I always think, like, I don't know about you, but like before the internet, and I don't know if you're from Minnesota, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have like a deer and turkey show like once a year, Okay, so Michigan has one they call the Michigan Deer and Turkey Spectacular or something. At least that was the old name. And we'd go, and it was like everybody was so pumped to go, and they had this wall full of bucks that were killed that year, and everybody's oohing and ahhing, and everybody has their little photo album, of their deer that they got this year. Like, oh man, I got this doe, and I got this 6 point. Look at this 10 point. And the pride, of being successful and working hard at something and wanting to share that. I think that's so important. Like, I think that is a very important thing. It's a very natural thing. I don't think anyone needs to feel guilty about doing that. Like, I think we need to do that. That's happened since the beginning of time, sharing the hunt and sharing photos. And so, it certainly gives us a great opportunity to do that. And that's the way I look at it, when I use, social media. But yeah, there's a lot out there it's not about that. It's about, look at me, and, I'm going on 10 outfitted hunts a year, and I, whacked another big one, and a lot of self-promoting. And that's, that's kind of the side that I think people are starting to take a look at and not really love that side as much. So, I don't know. I don't want to dig too far into it, but I have my opinions, and, other people have theirs, and I don't, necessarily think mine are the right way. It's just mine,
I just think we're going to move on here in a second. I just think it's really easy to sort of fall in love with an idea around this. Like, if you could give me a magic wand and I could wave it and social media would be gone forever, I would do that in a heartbeat. But I wouldn't do it to save hunting. I would do it because I do not think it's good for us. Like, just generally, I think it's a net loss. But that's not the world we live in. Like, nobody's handing me that one. That shit's not going to happen. So we have to operate under the world. Okay, like, what do we do now that we know this is here and this is a big part of people's business model, and all these companies are using this, like this? How do we go from here, knowing that it's not just going to go away, and knowing that people aren't going to stop? And it's not an easy thing to fix. And the other thing too, like that you mentioned, I kind of look at that and I go, man, I don't know, if you work hard and you kill a big buck and you put a photo up, I'm like, I kind of think you should be proud of that. Like,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily think we should be taking pictures of every time we bench 225 and we want to show off a couple plates on there or whatever, like, I don't necessarily think we need to be doing that. But if you do something, that you're proud of, I don't know, man, like you said, when we used to walk into the archery shop when I was 12 years old, there was all kinds of pictures tacked up there that people printed out of animals they were. And, you weren't like, oh, this guy's an asshole. You'd be like, oh my God, look, this dude killed a great buck. I mean, like, so it's a different world now, and I don't really know where to go with it. And I love some small parts of it. Like, I love the inspiration part. And like, people can say like that doesn't exist, but that's bullshit, man. I know that you experience this. I'm sure you do, where I've had so many people where if I've like posted a buck I killed on public land or did an article on it or talked about it on a podcast, I've had people be like, I cannot believe that you did that. Like, I can't believe you went out and killed one here. Like, that's amazing to me. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they're out there, go do it. And I'm sure you hear from people who are like, I went on my first trip and it was awesome. I killed, or I didn't kill, or I got close, or even a turkey hunt or something. And man, I think that's such a positive. Like, I think that there's so much good that comes out of it, inspiring people to go try this thing that's such a huge part of your life and my life.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's awesome. And I get a lot of, obviously for being on, your podcast and Kenyon's, and, a lot of people have come to know who I am. And, it's a strange feeling for sure. I get a lot of messages, a lot of questions and stuff. And, it's cool because I'm happy to help people. And I might not have all the answers, but I'm certainly happy to give them a bit of time, because I was that person at one point that was just asking a lot of questions and being annoying and trying to, trying to email John Eberhart and trying to, figure out these guys that were in the magazines like Bobby Worthington, and like, trying to find his email so I can ask him some questions and stuff. Like, so I think it's important to have, to do that, to, if you're in that position and like you are, and like I am at least, to a point where, guys are kind of looking at you and want to maybe learn some stuff from you. I'm happy and I'm honored to give some of that information that I've learned and some of my experiences away, and just try to kind of feed that in the direction that I really feel strongly that, hunting should go. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I do. And if I get asked questions that are just kind of, in a different whole realm of hunting, like I say, I can't speak on that. I don't really know. So it's cool. It's a weird feeling, but it's cool. It's neat to be able to interact with people and talk about that stuff. And you feel like you're helping people. And I'm still doing that. I'm still asking other people questions and trying to learn as much as I can from other guys that are, more experienced than me. So it's a good thing. And that's one of the positives of social media, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and so, just the new media of podcasts and everything. If anybody's listening to you talk about that and you talking about reaching out to people and they're like, I don't know if Andy really does that. I can't remember if I said this on this podcast or what I was talking on, but when I killed that buck in Iowa last year, you texted me several times about that buck, asking me questions about like the setup I killed him in. And at one point I was like, I think Andy Mays thought about this buck more than I have. I'm like, I think this guy's more invested in this deer. And you were trying to get to the root of where it was, and not where it was, but like what did the kill encompass? Like, how did that come together? And it was really interesting to me because you were asking me stuff that I like kind of really didn't even think about. I was like, I went in there and I'd found this concentration and jumped these deer and set up, and he came back through it, but it got me thinking about it on a different level. And that is one of the cool things about, today's world. Like you can really curate content around what you're interested in or what you think you might be interested in. And so often, like on the topic of traveling out of state to hunt whitetails, there's so many different ways to go about that. You could hire an outfitter and guide, do that type of service. You could lease a place, you could tap your network, you could go hunt public land like we do. And then now you can find people not only who are out there doing that and showing you the kind of sign they're scouting and the kind of terrain features they're looking for, but you can also watch dudes like Zach Fehrenbaugh go out there and have a freaking blast doing it and encountering big bucks. And I think that kind of like inspiration, get your ass off the couch type of thing is probably the most important part about all of this now. If you're sitting there at home and you're like, I've never traveled to hunt whitetails and I kind of want to, like, if for no other reason, just look at how much fun some of these people are having going out and doing this, and just go freaking do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. It's that if I would have just stayed in Michigan and just, had my whole bow hunting, career, if that's what you want to call it, in Michigan, man, I certainly would have, loved it. It's a grind here. It can be extremely frustrating, but once I started traveling, I realized like, man, there is so much more to this hunting thing. And I was successful fairly early on here in Michigan, and I kind of, people started catching on that I was killing some big bucks here in Michigan because it just doesn't happen that consistently. And you're young, you're in your early 20s, and people are like, oh man, you killed a big buck, like you're a good hunter and all this stuff. And I'd be down at the archery league and my pictures are up, they're putting my pictures up on the wall and stuff. It's like, yeah, you think, all right, I'm a big shot. I was young, I was stupid. I thought like, yeah, nobody else that I knew of besides John really was Eberhart was killing big bucks in Michigan. It's like, I felt pretty good. I felt like I was, felt like I knew something. And then it's like, you start traveling out of state, you're like, holy crap, what's this stuff? Like, what are these giant hills? And where is the cornfield? And where's the, the bean fields and all this stuff. And it's like, it took my enjoyment of hunting, and it just opened up that mindset of, holy crap, I got a lot to learn, and I want to learn it.
Yep.
And now it's like, I take my Michigan hunting, I take it as a personal challenge every year. It's always the hardest tag for me to fill. It's always the most grind. It's always the most frustrating. It's always the hardest. Like this year I had so many cameras out, and I didn't have a single buck over 120 inches. And it's like, geez, like so tough. But I take it as a personal challenge every year. Like I want to be successful in Michigan. But man, truth be told, I just love that adventure of trying things new, going to new places, going to places where you don't know what you're going to get into, and what type of terrain you're going to see, and what type of situation you're going to find yourself in. And man, yeah, I can't recommend that enough for people, just to kind of keep that fire lit. And yeah, I don't know. That's become my niche, a traveling hunter. I certainly try to get it done in my home state, but man, I look forward every year the most just to getting out of here and experiencing new things. Yeah.
I'm the same way. I mean, I like hunting in Minnesota, but I love heading out on the road. And
Yep.
It's neat. You've mentioned this a couple times. To me, what's neat is I've hunted so many different chunks of public land across a bunch of different states, and I try to hunt someplace new every year. Just cause, I love that part. But you also hit some of those places or some of those regions or some of those properties where you're like, I just want to go back there and be there. Even if the hunting's going to be really tough. Like Western North Dakota is like that for me. I can't move on from there. I love camping there. I love the smell of sage. I love being around elk and antelope and mule deer while I'm hunting whitetails. And I love the environment of the whole thing. And I feel so lucky getting to have that and knowing like every year, at least until they change the tag situation, I'm like, I can buy that whitetail tag and I can go there and be in that environment. And some years, you kill a great buck. Some years you don't, but it's always like a place where I just go, this is always worth my time. Like I never have a bad trip here. Like it's always fun. And then you go to some other places and you're like, this could be the next Western North Dakota for me. Like, I don't know. Or I could go there and it's like, for whatever reason, this kind of hunting didn't do it for me, or there was more people than I like or something. It's like, okay, well, still wasn't a bad trip, but I'm not coming back here. I'm going to find another one. I'm going to find a new place. And I think, when we talk about like traveling for whitetails, the message that I wish people really, really understood is there are so many opportunities out there. Like it's not, and we talk a lot about Iowa and Kansas and some of the big buck states, but it doesn't have to be that. Like the opportunities to go have a fun hunt are everywhere. Like you just got to go. Like you got to figure out like, what am I going to do? And I'm going to take one this year. I'm just going to go, maybe I'll go scout it in turkey season, maybe whatever, but just go do one and see what it's all about. And you know how it is. Like the people who usually try that, they don't go, it's not a one and done deal. Like you see that in the elk hunting world. You see people who are like, oh, I love to go elk hunting. They go one time. They're like, screw this. Like I'm done. Yep. Whitetail, like passionate whitetail hunters, when they cross those state lines for that first time and they've got their tent and a buddy, riding in the passenger seat, they're going again because it's a freaking awesome experience.
Oh yeah. I've fallen into, it's what started as a one out of state trip, quickly became 2, and then it was 3. And then, next thing you know, I'm trying to get 4 or 5 in. And it's like, I'm sandwiching, I'm reducing the days per hunt down to 2 so I can fit more states in. I mean, that's how much I enjoy it. Like I'm literally condensing the time away to 2 or 3 or 4 days. And, obviously my chance of successes go way down, but I value like hitting all those new areas so much. It's worth it to me. But I actually gotta start backtracking and going the opposite way a little bit, because I've been trying to do, a little too much with too little time. But yeah, man, amen on everything you said. Like it's awesome. It's something I'll every year, multiple trips, new areas, some of my favorite areas, kind of mix it in. And that's just the way I do it.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Do you find with your travel schedule, because one of the things that blew my mind when I really started hitting the public land hard and traveling 3, 4, 5, 6 states a year, I had so many moments where I was like, this thing I thought about whitetails or whitetail hunting wasn't true. This thing that I believed is not true. And you see this with, moon phase, weather conditions, hunting pressure, the caliber of deer here, the quantity of deer there. You see this with so many different aspects of whitetail hunting. And when I started traveling more, I was like, well, that's BS. That's BS. That's BS. Like, I just realized that we believe a lot of stuff that's just not true. And when you go hunt in a place out of state and you're like, I got 4 days to get this done or 5 days, and it might not be the ideal rut time. It might be mid-October, something like that. And you get out there, you realize like, man, there's deer out here. They're moving. They're laying down sign. They're giving me my chance. Now I just got to put in my time. And you start to have great hunts when you're not supposed to and where you're not supposed to. And you go, it's like a door opens for you. And you just realize like I can go anywhere probably and have a pretty decent hunt.
Yeah. I think the main thing to me that was, and I realized this very quickly, probably my first out of state trip, is as you read in the magazines, you hear this expert talking about this, and this is what deer do, and, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of lay it out there. And what I quickly realized is like, man, deer are very different in different areas, different states. They behave very different. I feel like, some of the fundamental information out there always rings true, bed to feed, that sort of thing, rut, whatever. But like you mentioned, as far as like, what they tolerate, how far they move, during certain times of year varies so differently, from state to state, and even from, sometimes property to property, like what they eat, what they feed on. You start going out of state and they start eating this stuff and you have no idea what it is. I'm just like, I'm not sure what it is, but they're eating it. So for me, that was probably the biggest eye-opening thing. Like a lot of what I read sounded so concrete, like this is what deer do and this is what mature bucks do and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, and everywhere I go, it's a little different. I've hunted states where I've seen deer literally walk like, 3/4 of a mile from bed to feed, you know what I mean? Like a long, long ways. And, in Michigan, I can't get a deer to do, 75 yards from his bed before dark. You know what I mean? So it's so different. And that's what makes it so cool and so interesting, is just, you get thrown into a new situation. Things are happening different. Like you didn't expect, you all of a sudden you go out of state, you can start calling deer in, or, you're in a situation where you can maybe throw up a decoy, or you can, do a little spot and stalk. It's just all different. You're constantly learning, new situations, new scenarios. And I don't know, man, I just eat it up.
Well, I talked to Casey about that, 'cause he's obsessed with, like hunting Kansas, where you can, you got a legitimate chance of bedding one down and crawling up on him. And we just kind of got on the topic of, if you live in, east of the Mississippi, the odds of watching lots of deer, or let me say this, the odds of watching lots of mature bucks bed down and see what they do throughout the day is really low. Like you might go a decade and not see a deer bed down, let alone a mature buck. And when you get to some of these Western states or some of these more open states, you actually get to watch that deer behavior that you're only just filling in the blanks with at home, because you don't get to see it. And you get to see how they react. He was talking about in like high wind and how they'll stand up and look around sometimes. They don't go anywhere. They're just like, I'm just going to check out, make sure no coyotes or anything got too close to me. And you get to observe this buck behavior in a way that's just, you're only going to get it in certain situations. But as a hunter, watching one thing like that happen, one morning where you watch a buck just do his thing for 45 minutes or an hour, you've leveled up in some way from that encounter so much. And that's something like, it's so incredible that opportunity is out there. Like if you're a big woods hunter somewhere, you can go hunt one of these states. Some of them are over the counter, some of them you got to apply, but you could get yourself in a situation where you could watch more mature bucks do their thing. It might be through a spotter a half a mile or a mile away, but you're still in person observing these deer do these things. That's incredible to witness. And you're not getting that at home.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up. My buddy, Justin Wright, phenomenal hunter. Maybe, probably one of the best that I know of, in my opinion. We were just talking yesterday, and, we were doing the sob story and whining about our home states. We were talking about how a good friend of ours, resides in Iowa. He's a phenomenal hunter too. He kills some really good deer on public land. He's a true woodsman. And we were talking about how he gets to experience and see so many more mature animals than we get to, like at home. Like he gets to observe and learn by actually observing all these older age class bucks because of where he lives. And it's like such a cool, it's such a cool learning experience and advantage, to be able to observe that so often, where, in Michigan, I might see a mature buck once a season, and just some fleeting moment, like right before I shoot him or something, you know what I mean? And it's different in every area. They all have their different challenges. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting you said that. We were just talking about that yesterday, but pretty cool stuff.
I mean, I think it's important, and I equate a lot of stuff to bird dogs because I'm so into them, and I love training them, and I'm buddies with some of the freaking best trainers in the world. Like I work with Tom Dokken all the time, and that dude can like see into the future with dogs. It's incredible. And one of the things that you see with bird dogs is a lot of times, let's say you live in South Dakota, you're like, well, okay, I'm gonna get a pheasant dog. I'm going to go buy a GSP or a lab or whatever your flavor is. And, you train it and it's going to hunt pheasants. And that dog can be great at that. But if you get a dog that's pretty versatile and you hunt those pheasants, but you're like, you know what, I'm going to skip down south and I'm going to hunt quail. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to move a little farther west. I'm going to hunt those Sharpies and I'm going to hunt some prairie chickens. And maybe we're going to spend some time in a duck blind. When you have a dog that does that stuff, especially when you're working with them when they're young, and they get exposed to those new environments and those public land birds in different places. And you see that confidence level. So, going from wild roosters to a covey of quail is a different freaking thing, but there's a lot of similar elements, like, especially from the dog's perspective, and you just see them. And it's like a little mirror to what we can do for ourselves, where it's like these dogs, you drop them off in a new environment. They don't know what they're doing right away. Like you see them learning. Like they're figuring shit out, and you get those first contacts, and they go, okay, I'm starting to see what's going on here. And you watch it like almost in real time on those trips level up. And like, we don't think about ourselves that way, but when you get time to go travel to a couple different states, or you take one state a year, and maybe it's an elk hunt, maybe it's an antelope hunt, maybe it's a whitetail, whatever, you're putting yourself in new environments where you got to work with what's between your ears, and you're going to get better. Even if you go and you fail, which you probably will the first time, like you're probably not going to succeed and fill that tag. You might, but what you're going to do is become better. And when you go back, like, I don't know if you've seen this, but a lot of times when my buddies and I will go to a new state, we'll go and, usually somebody will kill, right? Like somebody will kill something, but it's like the second year you go, if you go back, then it's freaking on. And it doesn't happen the way you thought it would a lot of times, but it happens. And it's just like, you just got that experience layer leveled in there, and you go, okay, now it's on. And I just love that we have the chance to do that for ourselves. Even if, like if you're sitting at home and you're like, well, I can't go to 5 states. Like, yeah, most people can't, but if you could do one, and you probably can, like, man, if you really love to hunt, you should probably give it a shot and just see if that's your thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, nothing will make you question what you really know about hunting, and just getting thrown into a whole new world of whitetails that you're not experienced with. I mean, look what Kenyon got to do this year, with it, that cool project he did where he got to go to all these places, with all these really good experienced hunters in those places. And he got to experience and learn from them, and then got to do it himself. I mean, what an awesome trip. And I know he was stressed out about that, and he was a little worried, about some things. And I was like, man, listen, don't worry about if you kill anything. Like, you have such a unique opportunity, like something I would give anything to do. It doesn't matter if you don't kill anything.
Yep.
Like, you're going to get that experience. You're going to learn from an expert in that area, or someone that's very, very good in that area. And you're going to learn so much that's going to make you a better hunter. You're going to be able to bring that home to Michigan and apply some of that knowledge. You're going to have confidence to go to any one of those places now. And like you said, now it's your second year. Now you're building on that. Now you're going to start getting some kills and some opportunities and stuff. It's like, and that's what it's all about. So I don't know. It's just a really neat idea for a show. And I don't know, I'm super pumped to see that, to be honest with you. But yeah, man, just throwing yourself into all those new situations, and just building on it, and just keep improving. I'd really like to see, and I know there's a lot of guys out there that's important to them, is just to be a good hunter, and to increase and build on that skill set, so that they can go to different places and have some encounters and some success. I mean, there's tons of guys, even on social media, YouTube. I mean, they're traveling. The out of state thing is as big as it's ever been. So that's a good thing. You know what I mean? I think it's only going to get better. Yeah, it might be a little more crowded for us, and maybe the quality of bucks goes down with the increased pressure, but whatever. You know what I mean? I think it's a good thing. You always got to adapt and overcome and find new areas. And if more guys are out there getting after it and becoming better hunters, then you got to level up yourself. You know what I mean? You got to rise above that to keep getting it done. So just if anyone can take anything from this episode, is just try to keep that mindset. I think keep that mindset of actually trying to improve and trying to become a better hunter, and to keep that idea of becoming a better woodsman alive. That's something that I think is so important. I don't want to lose that. And I don't want to quit. I don't want to quit talking about the guys that came before us that did that. Those are the true legends of hunting. And those are the guys that kind of paved that way. And, I don't know. I certainly hope that I'm improving to the point where, I will feel that I'm, I'll feel like I'm a good woodsman. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When it's all said and done, I want to have that feeling like that I became the best hunter that I could be. And I didn't just try to be successful. I didn't try to buy it. I didn't try to get it through technology. I didn't try to get it by securing a bunch of land. That's important to me. And I know everything hunting can be completely different of why they hunt and what makes them happy for every guy. And I'm not trying to steer everybody down this path. Absolutely not. But I hope this idea of keeping the woodsmanship alive, I hope that lasts. You know what I mean? I really do. I think that's important. I think this is a good conversation to have.
I do too, man. We got to wrap this up here in just a second, but I want to ask you something. So we filmed this 1 week in November series that's up on YouTube now. And I think it was the 5th day. I had a wild day. So I had a 150 incher run in the morning. He went by me at 15 yards. I couldn't shoot because my cameraman wasn't ready. Watered at 20 yards. I had this buck within 34 yards of me for 7.5 minutes. On the video, it's only like a 20-second encounter or something, but it was a long encounter, right? And I drew on that buck 4 times. He made every decision that buck made was perfect. Like instead of just walking down the easy trail, he cut into the brush at one point, and he just took an extra 5 yards on his row and finally got downwind of us. But that deer was like, he made every freaking choice correctly. So I lost that deer and super bummed. That afternoon, had a nice buck come in chasing does, just flat out missed him, rushed my shot. And so I had that happen. And then as it got dark, we ran out of camera light and like 175-inch deer came out. And this is, and I say that specifically because I'm looking at this buck from like 70 yards away through my binoculars. And my first impression is 170 to 180. And then my buddy saw him later. And so I was like, I think that deer's like 175 inches. He's a monster. And my buddy said his first impression when he saw him in person, he's like, I don't know, 175 inches popped into my head. So that's what we're going with. But that deer chased a doe into bow range. It was still legal shooting light, but no camera light left. And watching that show, I watched it with my daughters when it would come out every Tuesday. And just watching that show, I just had it brought back this feeling that day. Even though I had an amazing day encounter wise, I felt like I just did not know what I was doing. I was just like, I can't get this right. And you know how it hurts? Like it hurts when you blank, but it really hurts when you're like right there, they're right there and they get away. And then to have 3 bucks do that in one day, I felt like I should not have been hunting. Like I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. When was the last time where you just had a moment where you're out there and you're like, do I even know what the hell I'm doing? Like, when was the last time you wanted to throw that bow away and pick up golf clubs? Let me ask you that.
All last year, ironically, I felt like I was floundering. The crazy thing is I killed 4 bucks this year. I killed 4 bucks last year. This year, I felt dialed in. I felt dialed in. I was super confident. Had the same success both years. Last year, I could not get anything going. I never scouted so hard and searched so far, 4 different counties for a shooter in Michigan. I could not turn anything up. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I was talking to my buddy Justin Wright about it. I was like, I have never had a season where I felt more unconfident and like I didn't know what I was doing than right now. But you know what? I had 4 days where things went right. And I made the shot and got an animal down. This year, it's like I was really dialed in with things. You know, I was reading sign, I was getting on a buck, shot him. You know what I mean? And I go out of state. I have a game plan. You know, get up high, glass on a high knob, look for a shooter, boom, got one. Made a stalk, shot him. You know what I mean? Things were like clicking, and the confidence was at an all-time high. So, yeah, man. It happens to me all the time. Like my confidence level is up and down and up and down. But what I've learned is just like, man, I don't know it all. Like I'm not a deer hunting expert. You know what I mean? I'm a guy that loves it. I'm a guy that has spent a lot of time. I dedicated a huge portion of my life to hunting, and always with that mindset to learn as much as I can and to keep improving. And I've learned that, my seasons are going to go like this. My mental toughness and confidence is going to go like this. I'm going to get thrown in some situations where I'm just going to be like, are there even any deer around? Like, I can't get on anything. And then, you know what? You just keep at it. You keep following your instinct. You keep making those decisions that those instinctual decisions that you've developed over the years through all this experience. And then all of a sudden things start to happen. You start to get in them, or you make that right stand choice, and boom, here he comes. And, it happens to me all the time. So I mean, people might have an impression that I'm like 100% confident and 100% dialed in on each and every hunt. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, it happens to me all the time. So, but I've learned to ride the wave. I've learned to trust my instinct and trust my decisions. And there's going to be hunts and seasons and situations where I just make the wrong call and I can't get anything going. But you kind of have to weed through that sometimes to get to those good moments where the instincts take over and you get it done.
Well, that's sort of a dirty little secret about why, heading out of state to hunt whitetails can be so beneficial. Is you feel really guilty if you're not getting after it. If you're at home and you're kind of in a slump and you're like, I'm not going to go sit tonight. I don't think it's easy to talk yourself out of it for a lot of people. If you've bought that over the counter, or, you bought that non-resident license and you've taken that time off of work and you've bought all the food to go camping and blah, 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 and driven out there, you got a lot invested in that. You've told everybody you're going, like you don't want to come home empty handed. And it kind of teaches you like, this stuff is streaky, man. Like you have times where it's like you are on it, and you have times where you just suck. And there's like, you just the only way out is through. And on a trip, like you're just going to keep going because you don't have a choice. Like you do have a choice, but you're not going to give yourself that choice. You're like, I'm just going to keep hunting. Like, a prime example would be like, if you, and I know you've done this, but if you go on a spot and stalk hunt, like let's say you're going to go spot and stalk antelope, like, man, you want to feel like you shouldn't be carrying a bow around, go try to crawl up on some antelope out there, because you'll get your ass kicked most of the time. But they live out in the wide open. They let you see them all day long. And it's like, well, I'll find the next one, and I'll find the next one. And then once in a while you get that buck that beds down, or that one that just puts himself in a position where you're like, all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh my God, I'm 43 yards away. He's clueless. And you got into the guard after just getting smoked for 10 stalks in a row. And you just realize like, okay, like this was just a numbers game. Like I just had to stick through it, but it's hard. And I think that's one of the things in the hunting industry we haven't done a very good job of, because it's not as sexy as killing a big one. It's just talking about how often it really sucks and it's really not going your way, because it happens. I mean, I've had streaks, I've talked about this before, like in the big woods up in northern Wisconsin, where I'm trying to kill a doe and I haven't seen a deer in 3 weeks. I'm not hunting 21 days in a row, but I'm putting in days every week, and I'm like, I can't even see one, let alone shoot one. And I'm talking any antlerless deer, let alone 140-inch bucks. And then every once in a while it breaks loose if you stick with it, or you get into that situation where your mojo changes and you're like, I'm going to try this new spot, and the sign is there, and you set up and now you observe something and you're like, oh, they're crossing down there. They're following this soft edge. Now you get into something and you're back in it just by sticking with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess I have a bit of a reputation of going on these short hunts, right? Because of my job, and I don't have vacation time, and getting it done in a short period. And, I've done that a lot, but I am not so naive to think that I can go anywhere and do that. There are places, like you mentioned, there's places, in the South, there's places, northern Wisconsin, southern Ohio. There's tons of places where I know that I would not be able to go in 2 to 4 days and get it done consistently. Just the deer density, the difficulty of the terrain, the ability, or the lack of defined destination food sources and bedding and travel routes and all that kind of stuff. Those types of places require more time. You know what I mean? They're harder places. They require more time. That's a place that, anyone could go and kill one on the first day, but in reality, like, some of my friends go, to some of these spots, and, it's a 7 to 12 day trip. That might be over, if you can't do that all in one, it might be, over a span of 2 or 3 years. But like, so a lot of guys might get down on themselves, about going on these, like a couple of my friends, guys that are acquaintances, they'll message you like, I don't know how you're successful on every out of state hunt you go on, which isn't true, but they say that, and they're like, man, I've been on, 10 and I haven't killed anything. I was like, well, look where you're going. You know what I mean? You're going to spots that are hard. You're becoming a better hunter. You're going to these areas that are, more difficult. And, you don't have also all the experience and the time that I put in yet. Like, it'll come, but you're starting off on some really challenging stuff, and that's going to benefit you. You just got to be patient. You got to put in the time. There's a bigger learning curve in some of these areas. So, a lot of guys need to keep that in mind too. The Midwest, sometimes can have a way of, making guys look a little more skilled than they really are. You know what I mean? And it's not taken away from any Midwest guy. I'm a Midwest guy, and I travel a lot to the Midwest, but it's, there's more deer, there's more good bucks, there's more great bucks. And usually the terrain is a little bit easier to manage. So, those are all considerations, all things to think about, when you're evaluating yourself and evaluating what you've done. And, we all fall into that. We all fall into that trap of like comparing ourselves to other hunters, and we all know we shouldn't do it, but we all do it. But that's all, those are all things to consider. You know what I mean? Just look at it more like there's a guy doing this, and what can I learn from this guy? He's got a completely different situation. I think about those guys like from Seek One, that are killing those giant suburban deer. Like, man, I don't have a situation like that. But you listen to those guys talk, like, these guys are smart. Like, these guys are they're the best at what they do, obviously. And, they throw out little nuggets when they're talking about it, like, man, that was smart. Yep. That's true. Like, he talks about, Lee and Drew, they talk about some of the same stuff I see, like here in Michigan, like mature deer behavior. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's there's little pieces to pull from every hunter, every situation. You talk about your Iowa buck when I was asking you all those questions. I do that with everybody. Like, I need to hear the story because there's something I can learn from it. I love that. I love to hear what you were thinking. I love to hear about the terrain. Like, what was he doing? Like, was he just cruising? Was it, what time of year was it? What time of day was it? What was the wind doing? Like, I want to decipher through all this info because I'm selfishly trying to learn from it. Like, it's a cool experience that you just had. You were successful. I want to pull something that I can, put in my, maybe pull into my skill set and apply down the road. Like, I'll shoot, have some success. You do your normal thing. You send out your text message to all your buddies. There's like a handful of guys that ask me the story. Like, why'd you do that? Why'd you sit there? Like, what was it? And those are the guys that have that same mindset, like a lot of my friends just was like, congrats, you know what I mean? But they're missing such a huge opportunity to learn something. So I try not to ever, let that opportunity, go when of a hunter, a good hunter, a bad hunter, it doesn't matter. Just any hunter, if you can get that story and really listen to it and ask some questions, you might even, like you said, you started thinking about some things just by me asking the questions, but that's just the way my brain works. I use that as a, take me to school, Tony, like, take me to school. Tell me about that hunt. Like, I need to know. I want to know.
Well, so. I love that stuff. And so that buck, I'll just like, I know I said I was going to end this, but we got to talk about this quick. That buck, I went in there because I thought I had a really good pinch point, even though it was mid-October. I was just like, I knew there were bucks in the area, you know, I was like, I think this is going to be good. I ended up jumping that deer, and he ran down the bank of this river, basically between where the river is and the bluff is, down this chute. And the way the wind was and everything, I'm like, I don't know. I think he's going to turn around and come back. Like it was a chance sort of fell into my lap thing that I set up for, and it just worked. He came back and I shot him. I went back there this spring. I walked the whole freaking place out because I got to thinking about it, you know, like after talking to you, and just like, I'm like, I don't really know what was going on there. Like I know what I thought was going on there, and I walked in there and I killed a deer and it was awesome. But I'm like, I don't know what he ran to. I don't know what's down like, you know, I didn't go down there because when he walked past me, I shot him and he went back the way I came in. So I went and walked that out turkey hunting just because I'm like, I just want to see it. Like I want to see the tree, and I want to see what I was missing. Like why was that buck there? Like what's the total picture? And it was so different than I thought. Like I had filled in the blanks and just like, okay, you know, like I must be pretty damn good. I walked in here and did this. And then I saw what it really was, like the whole place was. And I was like, I wasn't even close to the good spots. Like I got lucky. I jumped that buck, but I found some real pinch points. And I found some, like a couple of benchy bedding area type of situations there where I was like, I thought I had a picture of this spot, and I sure could have sold it as that. But when I went in there and really figured it out, I was like, I knew like 5% about this little area, and seeing it in the spring, I was like, it was just an eye opener to be like, oh, this is actually what was happening there. And I've done that. I killed a buck in Wisconsin, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago on a night where the first deer I saw was like a 160. It was a monster. I didn't kill him. You know, he came in, made a rub. I killed a smaller buck that came through later. And the next day I was like, I got to see where he came from. Like I took my dog in there. I went freaking grouse hunting. I just looked around, and it was just like so beneficial to me. In fact, I've been back there about 6 times and really kind of like winter scouted and everything. But so much of this stuff, when you just go show up someplace and you're like, I got this pin down, I'm going to go walk into this area. You get like a little bit of a picture, but when you really start expanding that through scouting and spending some more time, it just like helps you like piece together, why was that buck there? Like, what was he doing? Or like, why do people park here and walk in there when I want to go hunt this creek bottom here? And it just, the more stuff you do like that and the more time you spend out there, and I know you do that because you're a scouting fiend, it just, I feel like it makes me enjoy the process so much more.
Yeah. Well, that's a testament of the type of hunter you are and the mentality you have. You know what I mean? That urge to learn about what happened. Like that's always, I do the same exact thing with every single kill, encounter, whatever. I always go back and investigate either, you know, if it's a successful hunt, I'll do it right after. But you know, after the season, I'll go back and really try to figure out what was going on there, why a deer was coming from this way, or where was he coming from, or where's he going to. Same thing, but it's that constant urge to just keep gaining more information and learning. Like it's just, I don't know, man. My brain is always like thinking about that stuff. I like have to shut it off. You know, sometimes I have to shut it off. Like I'll be at home and I'm just thinking about, you know, this stuff, and I'm thinking about it, and I bring my phone up, you know, we're supposed to be watching a movie, and I'm bringing up maps, and I'm like looking down like this, and I'm like, you know, Lisa will be like, Andy, what are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. You know, I got to shut it off. Like it's constantly going there. Just take in more information, more experiences, more, you know, more info. So, you know, I don't know. It's just the way my brain works. It sounds like it's kind of the way your brain works. You have some other hobbies, which is good. I probably need some other ones. You know, it's, you know, whitetails or bow hunting in general just kind of takes front and center. You know, and the only thing that I've really been able to, you know, put in front of that and keep in front of it, obviously, is just the family stuff. Yep. You know what I mean? It's a far second place behind that, but everything else, it's just like, I don't seem to have the passion for it anymore, but, yeah, I don't know, man. Fun conversation though.
It is, dude. And I really think I'm pretty squirrely too, man, but I've started to realize, you know, I've been like obsessive about different stuff, right? Like I've been obsessive about deer hunting. I've been obsessive about bass fishing, the dog thing, lots of stuff. Like I can go to a negative place with it by getting into it too much. And what I started realizing is like, I just got to find the stuff that is going to make me happy and I'm going to enjoy doing it and not go that overboard. And I started getting better at all of it. And so like, I love fishing in the ocean. You know, I live in Minnesota, so I get to do it like 5, 6, 7 days a year. I love taking my little girls down there, and I'm terrible at it. Like I'm fishing with, you know, like live shrimp. Like I don't care what bites. Like, I try to like learn some stuff, but you know, I'm very, very rookie with that stuff. But even when I'm doing that, I still feel like there's parallels to whitetail hunting. Or when I go pheasant hunting, this is going to sound so stupid, but I killed some roosters, in December where I ran into them. My dog flushed them up. And I was like, in my head, my first thought was, I feel like I just found a rooster staging area because I was like looking at the terrain. I'm like, they're not where I thought they were going to be. They're definitely not in the food source. It feels like they were kind of just loafing here in this area. And so much of this stuff, when you just get outdoors and you're, whether it's just an addiction to scouting or whether you love small game hunting or something else, it all feeds the whitetail thing. Like we've sold this message that it's kind of guerrilla warfare against the whitetails and you got to scout nonstop. And like, you can do that. People are successful, but if you need a little more motivation to be out there, like if you wouldn't go, spend as much time out there in December as you need to, or you probably should, but the roosters are out there and you can go learn something about whitetails while you're having fun doing something else, or spring turkey hunting and looking at some new ground. However you do it, like you're gonna level up if you spend more time out there. If you're paying attention to what's going on, nature, there's so many like parallels in nature, like we don't think about a pheasant and a deer being the same thing, but their motivations in life are the same thing. They don't want to get eaten. They want to eat something every day. At one point of the year, they want to have sex for like 2 weeks and then they're going to move on and then they're going to just try to survive. And I just think, I think we have really cool chances to really enjoy ourselves while we're getting better at this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, to your point too, it's like all those other things that you do, hunting wise for different, different types of critters and stuff. I mean, they all require different little, skill sets, right? And they all can translate back into whitetail hunting and improve in some way, whether it's like you said, antelope, you're sneaking up, you're trying to stalk antelope, and it's one of the hardest critters to stalk up on, and then you get a whitetail in a situation where you need to, try to do it, or a mule deer or something. It seems like child's play. Yep. You know what I mean? Not saying child's play, but you get what I'm saying. Like it's
easier than antelope.
Yes. Yeah. Or try to sneak up on a turkey. You know what I mean? You're trying to spot and stalk a turkey, like super difficult. Right. But if you can get that done and you're working on your sneaking skills, and I don't really know, I'm not much of a pheasant hunter, so I can't speak on that, but I'm sure there's things that you've learned there that have helped you be a little better in the whitetail woods. So yeah. And it all goes hand in hand. The more you can be out there, for sure, you're learning, you're developing, woodsmanship and ways to sneak around and to navigate and to be more effective. And it's just that mindset, that killer mindset, So yeah, it's all interesting stuff.
I love it, buddy. Let's wrap this up. Andy, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, man. I really appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Hey, anytime, buddy. I enjoy talking with you. So whenever you want, just let me know.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Okay.
That's it for this week, folks. Be sure to tune in next week for some more whitetail goodness. This has been Wired to Hunt, and I'm your guest host, Tony Peterson. As always, thank you so much for listening. And if you're looking for more whitetail content, be sure to check out themeateater.com/wired to see a pile of new articles each week. Head on over to our YouTube channel to check out our how-to stuff, or go to the Meat Eater YouTube channel and you can check out our 1 Week in November series, which we dropped last November, December.